The news, the bill to create a bipartisan commission to investigate the January 6th Capitol attack has passed the House but faces an uphill battle in the Senate. 35 House Republicans went against party leadership to join all Democrats in voting yes. The Washington Post framing it this way, quote, Republican leaders are trying to sink the legislation that probably would scrutinize former President Trump's role in the riot and his conversations with Republican lawmakers that day. Here is how Democratic Congressman Tim Ryan of Ohio put it on the House floor yesterday.
To the other 90% of our friends on the other side of the aisle, holy cow, incoherence. No idea what you're talking about. Benghazi, you guys chased the former Secretary of State all over the country, spent millions of dollars. We have people scaling the Capitol, hitting the Capitol Police with lead pipes across the head, and we can't get bipartisanship. What else has to happen in this country? Cops. This is a slap in the face to every rank and file cop in the United States. If we're going to take on China, if we're going to rebuild the country, if we're going to reverse climate change, we need two political parties in this country that are both living in reality, and you ain't one of them.
Yeah. You know, the first part of that clip we didn't show, he actually did. He was grateful to the Republicans that were working in a bipartisan way to make it happen and called them out by name. But it is surprising that those people who were cowering for their lives, many of them, don't want the country and the world to know what happened on January the 6th when the United States Capitol was breached in a way it hasn't been breached since the War of 1812. There's just, I mean, to vote against an inquiry to figure out what happened that day, that is about as staggering as it gets.
It is, and now it's going to the Senate, Joe, where it doesn't look good, frankly. It needs support from at least 10 Republicans to get past the filibuster. It needs 60 votes to get this thing going. Well, yesterday, Mitch McConnell urged his members to oppose the bill, calling the proposal, quote, slanted and unbalanced, and argued the ongoing congressional investigations are sufficient to probe the attack. Quote, it's not at all clear what new facts or additional investigation yet another commission could lay on top of the existing efforts by law enforcement and Congress. So, Anna, what changes here? I mean, it passed through the House, but if you got to get to 60 votes and Mitch McConnell's telling his caucus not to vote for it, how does this pass?
I think it's going to face a really uphill battle. The real question is, how hard does McConnell push his members to not support this? Does he let this be a vote of conscience? We've been hearing privately that Senate Republicans are leery of not letting this move and filibustering it when you had such a bipartisan vote in the House, 35 Republicans, going and supporting this measure. And so Chuck Schumer has said he is moving forward this with or without Republicans. He's going to press that hand. And I think in the next couple of weeks, we're going to see how much Republicans are willing to, in the Senate, say, no, we don't need this commission.
Yeah, I'm a little confused here, which is nothing new. I was confused last night when I was watching a strike zone the size of a county fair, but we'll get back to that later. So the Democrat, what you always say what you always hear from fundraisers moving into any election, they go, oh, we've got to win the House. I know you don't think it means a lot, but we've got subpoena power. Oh, we've got to win the Senate. You don't want the Democrats to have subpoena power, or you don't want the Republicans to have subpoena power and go after our president. I'm a little confused. The Democrats control the House. Democrats control the Senate. They can run these commissions. They can set them up any way they want to set them up. They've got the power of the subpoena. They can call anybody they want to call. And, of course, Chuck Schumer can do it in the Senate as well. I'm sure he'll get 50 votes for that. Or not even 50 votes. Just tell your chairman, chairwoman, go do this, investigate, go. You got the power of subpoena. I'm not really sure why people are wringing their hands over not having a joint committee. What's the difference? Because, I mean, look what Republicans did on Benghazi. With just Republicans basically supporting that inquiry.
That's a good question, and you're totally right. If Nancy Pelosi wants to have a select committee or have her chairman subpoena people in this and what happened on January 6th, that could happen. I think that what they were trying to do was say this is a step back moment. This is a 9/11-esque moment where we should have a bipartisan commission. And the speaker really moved. She had started this to be kind of a much more partisan operation. It was going to be who could have subpoena power, and it's now an evenly balanced commission. You have to have both Republicans and Democrats supporting the subpoenas. But this goes back to the fact that they wanted to have something there where there's not two sets of facts, that Republicans were invested in the effort so that they could have a result to actually bring back to the people of this country to say, this is actually what did happen. Not necessarily what Donald Trump is saying, not what some of these fringe members, the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world are saying, but here is what happened, lay it out, and actually make a pathway forward. That doesn't seem like it's going to be possible.
Michael Steele, do you remember former President Trump's second impeachment trial when Republican Senate leader Mitch McConnell gave an impassioned speech denouncing what happened on January 6th and saying that, of course, that the president fueled that violence at the Capitol and that nothing like this should ever be allowed to happen again. Since then, he's done everything in his power to walk the other way and walk away from those remarks. And here, blocking a bipartisan commission to investigate truly what happened there. I'm going to let you just go here, Michael. Is this yet another cynical political play from Mitch McConnell? What does this say about the state of his Senate caucus, where the Republican Party stands right now, and the grip that Donald Trump still has on the GOP?
Well, it says a lot about the grip, more than anything else. I mean, you know, McConnell, before Donald Trump said anything or really weighed in on this with respect to McConnell, was like, well, I'm going to take a look at this. I'm not sure. And then Donald Trump basically called him a punk. And, you know, next thing you know, Mitch McConnell's like, no, I see no reason to have this investigation. This is about a couple of things, one of which involves consequences. The GOP's calculation right now, when they look at redistricting, they look at the gerrymandering, and they look at what state Republican legislatures are doing to fix next year's elections and elections beyond that. They see no consequences at the ballot box. They think they have the advantage. So why upset your base unnecessarily? Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And why upset Donald Trump unnecessarily, because at the end of that day, that's certainly all that matters. So there is a calculation here that there will be very little consequence to this. And that, yes, Democrats and others will harangue them and there will be bad headlines. But when it's all said and done, so what? What are you going to do to me, right? And that's the stunning cynicism here. In all of this, the cold, calculated political approach to one of the most devastating events in our country since the War of 1812, where we can't even say, let's find out why this happened. Let's get to the bottom of who was involved. And the second piece is CYA. This is all about covering for Kevin McCarthy and other Republicans who are up to their elbows in this thing, because they played a role, whether it was talking to Donald Trump that day or whether it was maybe sending a text message to people who were storming outside those doors. There's a lot of information here they don't want disclosed. And so you have these two pieces, and they're sitting in the cut to say, well, what are you going to do about it? And I think the Democrats should just push through it. You've made the play to bipartisanship. You wanted America to see it full frontal, and the Republicans have said basically to the country, screw you. And so now I think the Democrats say, all right, let's give this to the committees and let's go ahead and do the investigation.
Yeah, so Joe, we've got votes in consecutive weeks. Last week's vote to oust Liz Cheney from her leadership position, making the statement that going out publicly and speaking the truth and saying the election was not stolen cannot stand in the Republican Party. She's kicked out of her job. A week later, you have this vote in the House that says, no, we don't want to look through carefully and closely at what happened on January 6th, what led up to it, what the security failures were on that day. This is clearly, it can't be any more stark from Republicans saying, we don't want to take a look at what happened during the 2020 election or the events that followed it, leading to an attack on the United States Capitol. It shouldn't be a controversial issue to investigate an attack to overturn a presidential election. But here we are.